Welcome to the Shootin' Show. Stand by for shots fired.
Hello, I'm Johnny Rowland, and of course you recognize Leroy Scott here, our good friend and counsel, a good part of this program. We're so glad to be with you folks today. Welcome to another Shootin' Show. We have a great show for you lined up. We're going to have some interesting features, going to have some guests I think you're going to find entertaining as well as informative. And welcome, whether you're a new shooter or an experienced shooter, we're glad to have everyone watching this program, because we've got to get our message out to the rest of the country how we as normal citizens are handling using firearms. So, Judge, why don't you open today's program for us? Well, you know, Judge, someone looking at the show, what we have here, this is a AP9 from Kimmel Industries, I believe. How about AA Arms Incorporated, Mint Hill, North Carolina? Well, friends, this is also a 9mm. This is a Taurus PT908. And you know, this one looks a lot more, shall we say, aggressive than this gun, but in fact, their capabilities are roughly the same. And this is where the people in Congress who don't know anything about anything except they want to disarm us, they say, oh, this has got a long magazine, it looks like a machine pistol. Well, in fact, friends, this is just a semi-automatic handgun, and the reason it looks like this, the bottom part here is plastic. It's a very robust, it's a straight blowback action. In fact, believe it or not, you can shoot hotter loads in this locked breech Taurus than you can in this AP9. That's hard to believe, isn't it? But the reason is this is a simpler action. This is the Browning type lock breech on this Taurus 9mm, and this is a straight blowback, much like we're used to with a .22 caliber semi-automatic on this particular gun. But the reason this gun looks like it does, it's inexpensive to manufacture. And I tell you what, this is very similar to the Tech 9. It's a little nicer looking gun than the Tech series of handguns, but it looks to be very functional. We're going to shoot it a little later on and just see just how functional in fact it is. But don't you agree it's ludicrous that these people in Congress, I heard about a trucker several years ago that was stopped in one state for having a fuzzbuster box in his cab. Not a fuzzbuster. He was issued a citation for having a fuzzbuster box. Comment, sir.
Well, I hate to comment on that because I know where it happened. It was in Virginia, and Virginia's got a very narrow attitude about radar detectors, which incidentally I don't think is legal for them to have that attitude, particularly for people who have an amateur radio license, which is a license to listen on all frequencies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's nothing but just electromagnetic waves, just exactly like
just a radio type
voice
wave
communication.
Well, you know, friends, what we're looking at here, another inexpensive gun. This is the little Intratec Scorpion, which again is, to someone who doesn't know anything about guns, this would look pretty ferocious, I guess, but it's just a .22 semi-automatic. And the reason is you can take tube steel and these injection molded plastics and have an inexpensive gun, and having a long magazine, I would think this would be a pretty nice gun for home defense, because you do have a reliable type system here, and a child is not going to be able to pull that bolt back. That spring is so strong that it takes a pretty good strong person just to pull the bolt back.
I had a Luger around my house when my children were small, Johnny, and for the same reason. It had been impossible for them to get a shell into the chamber. You had to know how to do it.
Know how to do it. So really, this is not a gun that we think should be outlawed. In fact, they're inexpensive for what they are. And tell you what, they're accurate shooters. They have fixed barrels. They tend to be very accurate guns for what they are, very reliable. And I tell you what, with a 9mm, personally, I believe I'd want a lot of shots with a 9 if I were going to defend my home. Although, as I said earlier, the instruction manual says for these guns not to take +P ammunition because it is a straight blowback. And that 9mm is a hot round now, and with a tremendous amount of pressure. So if the owner's manual says don't shoot +P, well, I'll take them at their word. But a regular 9, one of the other manufacturers, I'll tell you what, Judge, with 30 core bonds in here, you just darn near got a 30-shot 357 Magnum, which I think would be terrific. I might keep carbines in it. I wouldn't practice with them because they are hotter. Now, and that is interesting because you can shoot carbines all day in this little Taurus PT908, but because you have the blowback action here, you can't in this gun. Although it appears to be very functional, it seems to be a very reliable design.
Well, here's one, Johnny, that you can use plus P in all the time.
Well, yes, sir. And of course, this is the great Wesson 357 Magnum. And of course, this one's in stainless steel. I see we got some red on the sights here. So this is one of your favorite.
Blood. That's not blood. That's fingernail polish.
Well, I tell you what, it's easy to see. Now, this is one of your favorite handguns, isn't it?
That
Jim?
is. That's the one that stays right by my bed.
Well, and I believe, of course, it is loaded with some. We're going to, in fact, some very fine ammunition I'd like to add. And of course, these are terrific guns. You know, we had run some tests. We shot some plates with this 3-inch barrel gun at 100 yards, and the Wessons will do it. Well, you know, Judge, one thing about these revolvers, there's a lot of talk among the people who really don't know anything about guns, but this revolver probably is a much better gun for the average person due to the way it works, the simplicity. You don't have to worry about whether your safety is on or off. And plus, this is a full 357 Magnum. It is, the capabilities of the ammunition for this gun go quite a bit beyond one of these military lookalikes. Again, this is not an assault pistol. This is a semi-automatic pistol, just like any other 9mm. It just looks different. And I think it's a crying shame that looks is, they're making legislation on what something looks like. I think that's outrageous.
Well, Johnny, let me give you an example of some of that. Last week, while we were out here shooting, while I was on my way back to town, we had a little incident at my house where some youngsters came in, maybe 15, 16 years old, knocked at the door, and my wife wouldn't answer the door. So the next thing we know, she hears glass breaking in the garage door. And she stepped out of the front door then with a little semi-automatic 22 caliber pistol, which incidentally she didn't know was on safe and didn't know how to handle. I guess it's just as well, because as soon as they saw her, they ran. But I have now convinced her that what she needed to be having was a high standard Sentinel 9-shot 22 long rifle revolver, and with that she could really create some problems.
Mm-hmm. In fact, we're going to be showing that gun later on in the program. One of the high standard guns. You know, that's a company that went out of business several years ago, and they made really a neat line of products. So some of their things are being made today by Mitchell Arms. American Derringer is working on the high standard Derringer that was so popular, and I hope they get that back in production soon. But that would have been an excellent choice. If you've got a 22 revolver loaded with adequate ammunition like Stingers or something like that, and if you can hit with it, well, you have a pretty darn good defense weapon. I mean, it beats the heck out of throwing rocks or wrestling, believe me. But of course, you live in a nice part of town, but we're like so many places that, you know, there's not enough money to be gained or stolen in the bad parts of town, so some of the hoodlums are now coming to the better parts. And of course, a couple of our viewers stopped by out here on the farm the other day, and yes, I carry a gun all the time out here because we live in an isolated area, and there's no way that I'm going to be caught by surprise or caught off guard by some of these yahoos or drug dealers or people that do frequent our area out here. It's terrible what we're having to deal with. So yes, there is a reason to be armed and a reason to go armed as far as we're concerned, certainly, if you can do it safely and within the law.
Of course, Johnny, you know, in Louisiana we have the right to keep and bear arms secured by a state constitution as long as they're not concealed on the person. And several years ago we got a bill through the legislature that enabled us to have a concealed carry permit issued by the sheriff of the parish in which we live, and it's only good for that parish. And that's one of the nice things about our right to keep and bear arms, at least in Louisiana. And many other states are doing the same thing. Now, say Texas, Ann Richards vetoed such a bill that came out of the Texas legislature. But in more and more places, we're getting that. The lowest crime state in the whole nation is Vermont, and Vermont doesn't have the first firearms law, not the first. You can do anything you want.
Well, I think that it pretty much states its own case. And for those viewers in other parts of the country and certainly in Canada, when we say parish, we're the only state in the United States that has parishes. Everyone else has counties. That's the same thing as a county in any other state. Well, anyway, well, sir, we're out here. It's a great day to be shooting. The sun's down to the point now that, oh, heck, it must be down to about 108 out here, huh?
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
And the humidity is only about 99%, so let's do a little shooting.
Didn't even need to shoot that last one, it got scared.
Now, friends, we're looking at two of the finest small handguns that I'm aware of. These, of course, are from American Derringer Corporation. On your left, you have the Model 1, which is available in over 50 chamberings, and on the right is their double-action Derringer, which is very similar to the old high-standard design, except it's been modernized. This particular one is in the 38 special chambering. Now, friends, sometimes it's hard to have a large handgun with you, but you can always have one of these American Derringers. Call them 1-800-642-7817.
Well, friends, we're going to look at a most interesting gun today. This is a high standard. It's called a 99. And you'll notice from the picture it certainly is in a Western motif, shall we say, if I'm cultured enough to use that word. It certainly is in a Western styling, but it is, in fact, a double-action 22 long rifle revolver. It has 9 shots instead of what we're normally accustomed to as 6. And I tell you what, friends, this is such a neat design and a neat idea. And the little gun is so capable. One is a camp gun or a trail gun. And I tell you what, this little thing loaded with Stinger ammunition, 22 long rifle Stingers, is certainly, with 9 shots, the reliability of a revolver, this is certainly something to be considered. Well, let's take a look at the little gun in comparison. It looks very much like our single-action Ruger Super Blackhawk here. Of course, it's a lot smaller. But unlike the single-action here, it is also a double-action. We'll take a look at that in just a moment. But let me add, you know, the high-standard people had some of the neatest designs and neatest ideas. And I really wish that somebody would capitalize on some of these designs. This is a little gun that certainly looks like a cowboy gun, but it functions like a regular double-action revolver with one exception, which we're going to show you in just a minute. But they really are interesting little guns, well made, very functional. Now, we're not talking about, this is not a target gun. Of course, we have a box of 22 ammunition here. We're not talking target grade accuracy, but certainly at the ranges which I think the makers intended this little gun to, it has fixed sights. The ranges that I think they intended it be used, say 30, 40, 50 feet, something like that, it is certainly accurate enough. Accurate enough to be a pest gun, like I was talking about around a campsite, and always remember, this is, since it is a revolver, it will reliably function with the various shot cartridges that are available in 22 long rifle. Now, of course, you don't have a limitation. I suppose it would shoot shorts, longs, long rifles, anything that qualifies as a 22 long rifle cartridge or types of that. The CB caps will certainly function because you're not worried about having to get slide velocities or bolt velocities for a 22 semi-automatic. And you're also not worried about your bullet profile. If you can get it in here and it's 22 rimfire, in the regular series, it's not a Magnum, but a 22 rimfire, it's going to work.
The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station.
settle for second best in anything. That's why I shoot Corbon ammunition. Whether I'm using this rifle, my revolver, or my semi-automatic, Corbon, the best there is. For information on Corbon ammunition, call 1-800-626-7266. Again, call 1-800-626-7266 and tell them you saw it on the shooting show.
Now, friends, we've loaded our little high standard 9 here, and one of the things I find, and let me remind you, even with a 22 handgun like this, always wear eye and hearing protection. And yes, I do have those silicone or whatever they are gel earplugs in. I always wear them because it's just no sense in, as much as I shoot a gun, which is a little more than the average person certainly, I want to continue hearing. Anyway, the hammer design on this little gun is very conducive to single action cocking and shooting, but like so, it's very easy to hit something. In fact, I personally like the single action type grip. It seems like for hip shooting, snap shooting, something quick, seems like it's at least as comfortable as a double action revolver. And of course, if you want to, since this is a double action gun, you can shoot it either single or with the trigger there. You can pull the trigger and it will certainly fire a whole bunch of times. Now, friends, looking at our little high standard 9 here, you'll see what would normally be the ejector rod on a single action gun. Well, it serves an entirely different function here. What it does, instead of pushing it this way, you put your finger right here on the end, keep it away from the end of that barrel, right here on the end, and take your thumb and push forward, and then your cylinder will come out. And of course, you can see the arrangement here for the 9 shots. And of course, we've shot all these. Now then, the proper way, as I was taught, to unload a double action revolver is hold it through with your trigger finger there, and then give it a little slap. And of course, all the empties will readily come out, as we can see. This is really a neat little gun. The frame is made of some sort of alloy. I'm not sure what, maybe an aluminum alloy or zinc or who knows, but of course it's not under a lot of pressure or strain with this 22 long rifle cartridge. But the cylinder and certainly the barrel, all the hammer, the moving parts there, all are made of steel. But this is such a neat little package. Wish somebody would consider making this again, or in fact the high standard Sentinel was a very fine little double action revolver made in 22 long rifle and also in 22 Magnum. These are very nice guns to have. You'll sometimes find them at gun shows, or you'll find one maybe in a gun store, used one, because they haven't been made for several years. But the design is certainly there, and it would behoove some gun company to, I think, pick these things up again. Now then, friends, let's finish loading our high standard 9 and be sure that all of the cartridges are pressed in flush with the end of the cylinder there. And of course, snap it in place. And you can fire this gun, of course, just by pulling the trigger through. Although it is a harder trigger, it's much easier to shoot accurately in the single action mode. It's still not a light trigger. Let's see if we can hit that steel plate out there. And this is about 20 yards away. Let's see what it looks like. Yes, in fact, certainly accurate enough for its intended purpose. Well, friends, I've really enjoyed shooting this little high standard 9. You know, Taurus does make a double action revolver in 22 long rifle. I believe it shoots 9 times. We have one of their 8-shot 22 Magnum revolvers, but I think the high standard designs were deserving of a lot more credit than maybe they got, because they've been out of business for several years. But these really are nice little guns. If you find one at a gun show or a pawn shop, gun shop, whatever, they're not a bad buy. They're certainly a fun gun for plinking or small game, whatever else you want to do with it. And you can practice enough. Since it's a 22, you can get pretty darn good with it. Or you can practice for your larger revolvers of one of these 22s.
Hi, I'm Bill McIntyre with another update from Capitol Hill here at the new NRA headquarters just outside Washington, D.C. The National Rifle Association's Refuse to be a Victim public service program is a 3-hour seminar for women by women, which teaches easy-to-understand tactics that are useful in preventing criminal attack. The course doesn't encourage women to join the NRA or buy a gun. It simply provides women with the tools they need to prepare a personal safety strategy, including information about home, automobile, and physical security, self-defense training, and much more. The women of the NRA launched Refuse to be a Victim in response to the rise in violent crime against women. According to the Department of Justice, 3 out of 4 women over age 12 will become victims of crime at least once in their lives, and more than a third of them will be violently assaulted, raped, or robbed. Following extensive research, the women of the NRA Board of Directors introduced the program in September 1993. To date, over 34,000 women have called the 1-800 information number. Seminars in Dallas, Houston, Miami, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, and the Washington-Baltimore metropolitan areas are held on an ongoing basis. In addition to these courses being held for the general public, many community groups and businesses are sponsoring seminars for their members and employees. For more information on the Refuse to be a Victim program, call 1-800-861-1166. I'll be back next week with another update from Capitol Hill.
For information on the NRA Refuse to be a Victim program, call them at 1-800-861-1166. Again, 1-800-861-1166. And friends, be sure and tell them that you saw it here on the Shootin' Show. Please. Well, friends, we hope you're enjoying our program so far. I tell you what, the judge here was out there on the range, and hey, he's pretty smoky now. I mean, he's a pretty smoky shooter. He'll fool you. He looks so distinguished in here, but get him out there, and he has a lot of fun doing it. Well, what do you have for us this week, sir?
Johnny, I want to talk about some letters we've gotten about people in political life. And you know, this is election year, and this is what's important for us for the protection of our gun rights. In Ohio, we've got Joe Slavinik running. He's a Republican. He's running against the present senator's son-in-law, who seems to think they've set up a dynasty in Ohio.
And he has Metzenbaum's son-in-law, right?
Yes.
Very anti-gun.
Extremely anti-gun. One of the worst.
One of the enemy.
He was Slavinik has been in Congress, I believe. In any event, he is conducting a red-hot campaign and has pledged to protect gun rights. So we want to endorse him and tell him that we think he's a good man. Then there's one in Pennsylvania named Rick Santorum. And Rick's in the same position. He's running against an incumbent senator named Wofford, who apparently is a buddy of El Presidente. And
you mean the Clintonistas?
The Clintonistas. And I believe that Mr. Santorum deserves our support. Incidentally, I had seriously now, this is important, because gun owners have a bad habit of just thinking, well, it can't happen to us, it won't happen here, it can't happen here, so they get lackadaisical and they vote for people who are going to vote their guns away and vote their rights to defend themselves away. That's real important.
Well, as you've heard us say many times here on the program, don't worry, friends, if we don't do something, they're going to take everything away. I was watching Hillary this morning on one of the morning news programs.
I turned it off. I couldn't stand it.
Well, these people are so elitist that they think they know better for you and I. They want to run every iota of our personal lives. And friends, we can't allow this to happen. And taking these firearms away, you know, trying to explain the difference between this Ruger 22 semi-automatic handgun and this 10-millimeter semi-automatic handgun. These people think you from Mars when you talk about things like this that we as gun owners have some knowledge about. And yet they're trying to legislate guns like this away from us, the responsible citizens. We cannot allow that to happen.
Well, that program this morning, Johnny, was pure socialist talk. It sounds good. Socialism sounds good. The thing is, it doesn't work. It never has worked. It was tried in the early American colonies. They found it didn't work. Sure, it sounds good to say we have a responsibility to take care of the poor members of society, And of course, as soon as we shoulder that responsibility, there are more and more poor members of society who want to get taken care of. Now, I'm not heartless about this, but I'm also a realist about it. Socialism simply doesn't work, no matter how good it sounds. Now, incidentally, we had a program that I listened to a week or so ago on Larry King Live. And he was interviewing the candidates for the senatorial race in Virginia. There are 4 of them. One of them is Ollie North. And boy, was he anti-North. You could tell it. He wouldn't let North give his 800 number to call for support or contributions, but he gave Wilder, the retiring Democrat governor of Virginia, who's now a candidate for the Senate, gave him the opportunity to do it. I'm just appalled at the bias that the media shows, and we're trying to be the other voice, the other side of this. Ollie North made a statement, or tried to make a statement, supporting the right of gun owners, and Larry King cut him off.
Typical.
Absolutely typical.
Typical.
We have got to know who these people are, and if you good people out there will write us and let us have some of the campaign literature, we'll give your candidates a boost on this program. I want to know, though, I want to support candidates that do what they say and not candidates that tell you one thing and then do another. Now, every now and then, you may even have a candidate that tells you one thing and does another that you've got to support because the other one is even worse. And that can happen. And there are going to be some of those. But they've got to be a lot worse, because I can't stand being told one thing when I know that something else has happened.
You know, that is so true. It's a sorry state, it's a pitiful state of what we have allowed our political scene in Washington and even on some state and local levels to become. I was noticing on the news here just a couple of days ago, network news, talking about toward a cashless society, where the people in the government literally want to take away all the money in circulation and give you a debit card. Well, that little card is also going to have your life history on it. And you know, friends, that will literally put all the control over our finances into the hands of whoever's running the government computer. It is outrageous. Friends, we have got to do it, and we can do it, because it doesn't take that many people to set this country straight, to actually change our course. But now's the time. We cannot put it off. And one thing you can do, let me put in our gun club plug here. We need you in the Shoot and Show Gun Club. It's only $25 annual membership fee. And also, for an extra $10, for a total of $35, we can also sign you up for Gun Owners of America, which is a savings. You can belong to both organizations, ours and the GOA. Very fine organization. You can do that. If you're a member of the Shoot and Show Gun Club, of course you get your Bullet Express discounts, and it helps us reach more people. It helps us stay on the air, because, friends, we have to. We've got to. There is no alternative. We've got to reach the rest of America if we want to retain this country.
And don't forget, get our Shoot and Show Lady videos in. We're getting close to the deadline on it. Don't know what that deadline is yet, but get them in.
We'll be deciding that. We really have a wide variety. In fact, we have time on today's show. We're going to show one of the more recent tapes that have come in. We've had people literally of all ages submit, and this is great, because we had a grandmother send a tape in, and hey, let me tell you what, she can shoot a handgun. she's really excellent. And because we didn't put an age, we ask certainly be over 18, but there's a reason there's no limit, because we may wind up with several Shoot and Show ladies, because some of these ladies are would make terrific representatives for what we're doing.
And don't forget our Christmas fund. We're going to try to do something with that, and if we can just influence one race with it, it would have swung the balance in the House on that gun ban. Just one race. Mm-hmm. So it's important. Did you know that a presidential election not too many years ago in my lifetime would have been completely changed, and the other candidate would have been elected with the margin of 1 vote per precinct in that state? 1 vote per precinct. Now that shows how important it is that you get out and vote.
There's no excuse for that. I have friends that are gun owners that say, well, they didn't bother to vote. Well, hey, friends, it's time. I mean, we don't have the luxury, because you know what? These weak-minded liberals are easily organized. This is a problem because they can get up a group of liberals to darn near or weak-minded people, and not all liberals are weak-minded. Heck, in fact, there's some pretty darn shrewd ones in Washington. But they're easily organized, and you can get them to support almost anything. I mean, if you deal in emotions, and our country cannot run just on emotion, we have to run on principle. That is so important. So there's no excuse for not voting. I knew a young man who was hunting last fall at some point, and he said, I don't have time to go vote. Well, don't worry. If you don't have time to go vote, you won't have to worry, because you're going to have time, because you won't be hunting. Of course, you're going to be working a lot longer hours. You're going to be standing in lines down there for the bread line. You're going to be standing in all sorts of government-facilitated lines for almost everything if we allow this to happen.
That's well said, Johnny, because that's what's going to happen.
Incidentally, we want to mention the pro-gun rally in Pennsylvania. I believe they had a couple of thousand people show up. That was on July when? The 2nd, I believe. And we do appreciate some of the finest people in this country. In fact, there is no monopoly on decent people. We found this all over the country. The conservative citizens, they would like us to all believe that we're the last ones left. It's not true. We're in the majority, but we have to take control again. And some of those Pennsylvania folks are among the finest.
So get out and vote.
Yes, and join the Shootin' Show Gun Club, and yes, the Christmas Fund needs your help.
And work for your candidates.
Friends, to join our Shootin' Show Gun Club, you can call us at 1-800-895-7916. Again, 1-800-895-7916. It really does help us stay on the air. It's helping do a lot of different things. So please, if you can, join today. We accept MasterCard, Visa, check, money order, with whatever you can send there. $25 annual membership fee. Also, you get your Bullet Express discounts, and we'll send you a copy of our goals and what we have in mind to do. Now then, to send the Shootin' Show Lady Contest tapes in, send it to us here at the Shootin' Show, 554 Kings Highway, Shreveport, Louisiana, 71104. Just a plain camcorder VHS tape will be fine. If you have 8mm, that's okay too. But just say, for the lady, all she needs to say is, 1, why she believes in our right to keep and bear arms, why she likes a Shootin' Show, and why she'd like to be a Shootin' Show lady. Just 5 minutes or less will be just fine. We're really getting some exciting tapes on that, and I think this is going to be a tremendous thing this fall. The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station. Friends, all of us as shooting enthusiasts should be subscribing to Shotgun News, the trading post for anything that shoots. 3 big issues monthly with literally thousands and thousands of firearms bargains. Shotgun News, Post Office Box 669, Hastings, Nebraska, the zip code 68902, their phone number, area 402-463-4589, MasterCard or Visa for subscriptions only. Now call them at 1-800-345-6923.
This painting graphically illustrates the point that for all its strengths, the .58 caliber rifled musket did not have a volume of fire that was compatible with its accuracy. If soldiers were extended in any sort of skirmish line, their massed volume of fire was so low that they might well be overrun. This problem could in some measure be solved with a breech-loading weapon. The U.S. Indian Wars provide some perfect examples of the changes wrought by the breech loader when it replaced the muzzle-loading rifled musket. it would perhaps be profitable to start with the war between the states. Many historians are prone to criticize the decision makers in the war between the states as being stupid. The historians say that machine guns and repeating rifles were available. Anyone should have seen their superiority and should have adopted them immediately. Such historians are technical illiterates. The weapons of the war between the states were 19th century weapons and were in no way equivalent to anything we conceive of in the 20th century. For example, to characterize a Gatling gun as a machine gun is the grossest possible twisting of the term. The same is true of the breech-loading and repeating rifles and carbines of the war between the states era. Though they had a greater volume of fire than the rifled musket, those breech loaders and repeaters that did actually work, and there were few of those, suffered severe limitations in combat range. Further, at any one time, there were at least 15 or 20 competing designs of breech loaders and repeaters being shown to the Army. Each one was totally different in design and function and took a completely different type and caliber of ammunition. However, each one had at least one salesman who could put on a demonstration proving his to be better than the others. Normally that salesman had more than a little political clout from some fellow in Congress. Regardless of what the salesman showed, cartridge cases and rifle designs were in their infancy and were not up to the claims made for them. When issued in the field, breech loaders like the Joslin were discarded immediately, for they were not worth carrying. Lastly, you should understand that the manufacturing plants, though much better in the North than in the South, were still not capable of producing breech loaders or repeaters in the necessary millions of copies, nor ammunition for them in the required billions of rounds. Given these limitations in manufacturing, the short combat range, the technical infancy and unreliability of the breech loaders and the cartridge cases, there were very good reasons for retaining the .58 caliber rifled musket as the primary shoulder weapon during the war. By 1866, however, things were changing. The attention that the war focused on the problem of breech loaders began to result in some very sound designs. Further, cartridge cases were rapidly improving, and the industrial capacity of the North found that post-war demand was more in line with what they could produce. Into this arena stepped Mr. Erskine Allen, a tool maker at the Springfield Armory. He patented and showed to the Army his method of converting the Springfield rifled musket into a breech loader. His basic idea was to cut out the breech area of the rifled musket. The resulting trough was filled with a breech block that pivoted upwards like a trap door. After discharge, the hammer was cocked, the lock released, and the breech raised. This extracted and ejected the old cartridge. The shooter then thumbed a new cartridge into the chamber, closed the breech, and was ready to fire. The first Allen conversion was chambered for a metallic cartridge which roughly duplicated the ballistics of the .58 caliber rifled musket. By 1866, his second model conversion, which included relining the barrel to accept a .50 caliber center fire cartridge, was deemed suitable for general military use. I should emphasize here that none of this was possible without a practical center fire cartridge case. The case held powder, bullet, and primer in one package. The cartridge case also served double duty by expanding against the chamber on discharge and sealing the powder gases in the barrel. This cartridge case is critical. The breech loader held the cartridge case, and the case sealed the gases. Back to Mr. Allen's rifle, It was adopted in July of 1866 and put into immediate production. By January of 1867, the first shipments of these rifles were on their way west. These rifles arrived on the frontier none too soon. Serious social discussions with the Sioux Indians were reaching a fever pitch along the Bozeman Trail in Wyoming and Montana during the period 1866 and 67. The Fetterman Massacre had just occurred, and the Army, with its post-war reductions in manpower, was having trouble holding on. The two major forts in the area, Fort Phil Kearny and Fort C.F. Smith, were adequately garrisoned and suffered no major risk of being directly overrun, but their wood-cutting and hay and water-gathering parties were in considerable danger. When confronted with isolated parties of whites, Indian tactics were simple. They attempted to close the range as much as possible, preferably by ruse or surprise. When it was time to join battle, they normally had one or two warriors expose themselves as firing dummies. As soon as the first volley was fired by the whites, the remaining Indians would charge pell-mell, knowing that at worst, the whites with muzzle loaders could fire one more volley before being overrun. In August of 1867, the Indians tried this at a hayfield outside Fort C.F. Smith and in a wood-cutting area outside Fort Phil Kearny. In both cases, they met with a large surprise as they suffered volley after volley in rapid succession. A comparison of what they expected and what they got looks like this. Let's go to the chart. We list the combat range of the breech loader as being slightly better than the rifled musket because of the breech loader's higher velocity and better ballistic coefficient. Its volume of fire is easily double that of the rifled musket. As the range decreased and the need for adjusting sights or attaining a good sight picture consequently decreased, a good soldier with a breech loader could increase this rate of fire. It was not uncommon at close ranges for a breech loader to put out 9 or even 10 rounds a minute. This increase in volume is such that it paid the soldier to manipulate his weapon and continue to fire as the enemy closed, rather than give up firing and fix bayonets for a final contest. Our example pointed this out well. The breech loader had gotten off 7 rounds in the same period that the muzzle loader had fired 2 and was midway through the loading cycle of his 3rd round. The breech loader could continue to fire while the soldier armed with the muzzle loader had no choice but to fix bayonets. Erskine Allen's design would go through many modifications. Starting in 1873, it would be newly manufactured in .45-70 caliber as the Model 1873 Springfield. All told, over 650,000 Allen rifles would be made. Erskine Allen won the wagon box fight and helped open the trails west.
As many of you know, Art is a former instructor at West Point, and we really appreciate his contribution to the program. For information on Art's company, A Square, at 1 Industrial Park, Bedford, Kentucky, you can call them, area 502-255-7456. Again, 502-255-7456. And the A Square company builds some of the finest high-powered rifles and ammunition in the world. The Shootin' Show will be right back after this break for your local cable company or TV station. Now, friends, we are extremely pleased to be working with one of the finest magazines that you can find in the United States today, and it's called The New American. And the April 4 issue, which you see on your screen, covers issues like Toward a Police State. Using a national epidemic of crime and violence as a justification, media pundits and collectivist politicians are aggressively campaigning to disarm private citizens and strengthen federal law enforcement powers. Yes, friends, this is our type of magazine, mostly because it's true. Now, these people at the New American Magazine are making a special offer available to the Shootin' Show audience for $22 for a 6-month subscription, including the April 4 issue here, which deals with gun control and the things that go on with the politicians in Washington on how they're literally trying to disarm the United States population. Now, trust me on this one. If you're a gun owner, you need to get this issue of the New American. And friends, this magazine comes twice a month. This is really a bargain. They cover all sorts of subjects, such as the Somalian quagmire, as you can see. And how about national service, if you really want the true picture of what this national service is all about. How about the conservative index for the 103rd Congress, subjects like terror in Haiti, the real Aristide. How about Bill Clinton and a question of character, which is most important to most of us, certainly as conservative Americans. And here's a tremendous article on the New World Army. Now, friends, this is one of the finest publications that I think you could find in print anywhere today. It is really a bargain. $22 for 6 months of the New American Magazine. And remember, this is 13 issues, including this powerful gun control issue. And friends, I don't think you'll be disappointed. This, in fact, if you want to be informed about what's going on in the United States and all sorts of issues that are so important to every last one of us who are really patriotic citizens, you need to start getting the New American. Now, to get it, you can call them at 1-800-727-TRUE, and those numbers are 8783, 1-800-727-8783, and be sure and tell them that you saw it here on the Shootin' Show. It is such an important publication for our time, friends, and to really be informed, if you want to know the truth about what's going on in this country and around the world, again, you need the New American. 1-800-727-TRUE 8783, the New American.
Now then, friends, let's take a look at our AP9, and the good folks at Britton's have been nice enough to loan us this gun for testing. And as we were talking about earlier, these guns look the way they do because they're inexpensive, or relatively inexpensive to make. You have, of course, the magazine that goes in the front here, and these were, I suppose, a somewhat of a copy of or a takeoff on a submachine gun or a machine pistol. And you know, friends, you don't judge a book by its cover, and this is not an assault pistol. It happens to be a polymer frame, very relatively inexpensive gun, a very simply made, a very robust design, very rugged and durable, that the manufacturer took advantage of the military type manufacturing techniques to make this gun. It comes with a 20-round magazine. I think 30s are available, but just remember This is one semi-automatic gun, and here's another one. This Colt's been around since 1911, and probably this gun is going to take more skill to learn to use, certainly than this Colt, because it is a bigger gun, it is heavier, it's not quite as handy to shoot. Now then, you'll see in the movies, and of course you see a lot of ludicrous stuff in the movies, but you'll see people holding guns like this and banging away, bang, 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 bang. Well, that's ridiculous, because you just don't spray. You know, if this was a minigun and you had maybe 10,000 rounds in a canister, or a truck following you around with ammunition, yeah, you could spray then, but look what you may do, especially if you use this as a home defense type gun. You can't afford to have bullets going into other rooms, across the street, into houses, and some of the gang types like to use these high-capacity magazine guns, and they spray. A lot of drive-by shootings are sprayings. Well, you know, friends, until our country develops the will to do something about it, the gangs are going to continue. Until our government stops subsidizing illegitimate childbirth, we're going to continue to have fatherless, parentless children, and a teenage girl who's 12, 13, 14 years old is not old enough to be a responsible mother. Now, that's where the problem lies. So these people in Washington literally are using this, the gang warfare type thing, as an excuse to disarm us, the responsible citizen, us, the decent citizen, us, how about the tax-paying citizen, to take everything away from us that goes bang. Now, friends, remember, the police cannot be there to protect you at the time of the crime. We've got to take some responsibility for protecting ourselves. And these are terrific guns for home defense. Again, it would not be my first choice, because I would rather have a handier handgun. If I'm going to use a bigger gun, well, I want a shotgun or a rifle. But these are very fine guns, very serviceable. You do have quite a bit of spring power there in these things. It takes pretty good pretty good strength just to pull it back to load the gun. But what we do is you know me, let it go and let it slam forward, because that's how these things work. And you can tell, we have push our safety off here. Works better with the safety off. You can tell you have actually more recoil than I probably thought it would. I guess that heavy bolt slamming back and forth. We're going to do some tests in just a moment and take a look at it, but as far as functioning, the gun feeds and shoots. In fact, we bench rested it a little bit earlier, and believe it or not, the gun put 5 shots in under 2 inches with regular service type ammunition at 25 yards. I said, hey, that's better than a lot of most 9mm handguns will shoot anyway. Okay, friends, you can tell how this thing's made. You have a ventilated hand guard, and personally, I wouldn't put my hands down here, because there's too much danger of getting a finger in front of that muzzle, and we know this gun's unloaded. If you can see down there in the loading ramp or feed ramp barrel, it's very smooth, and I think it would feed about anything that would qualify as 9mm service type ammunition. Again, this gun is cautioned not to use the plus P type ammunition, because it is a straight blowback. It's not a locked breech. Anyway, you have our rear sight, and we have an adjustable front sight for windage and elevation. You can see the bolt, and this is the plastic part here, the bottom part of the frame. Of course, this is a lot of very nice looking put together metal here on the top for the receiver or for the bolt carrier or bolt group. And you can tell we have a very prominent safety right here. And up is safe, and of course down to fire. Very nicely thought out package, actually. Now then, friends, we'll take our magazine here, typical box magazine, and put it in. Be sure it's snapped all the way in. Give it a little tap on the bottom. Here's your magazine release, in fact. So again, we'll tap it in place. And now to load the gun, pull that bolt all the way at the rear and let it go. And of course now we'll put the gun safety down on fire. Let's take a shot with it. And put our gun on safe.
We want to show you some really nice, really fine shooting glasses. As you can see, I have them on, and they're comfortable. They're adjustable at the temple. We got these from Lone Star Sports Optics, and we're just real pleased with them. These glasses have a polycarbonate lens, and they're scratch resistant. These are recommended by the Shootin' Show, and if you would like information on how to get them, here's how.
For information on Lone Star Sports Optics, you can call them at area 817-573-0530. Again, area 817-573-0530.
Hi, I'm Bob Brown, Vietnam veteran and publisher of Soldier of Fortune magazine, described by some as the most politically incorrect magazine in the United States. Every issue we publish in-depth, provocative articles by our investigative reporters on the efforts of gun-grabbing politicians and the BATF to undermine our Second Amendment rights, and what you can do to stop them. Also on-site coverage of the government's abuse of power as occurred in the Randy Weaver tragedy and the Waco fiasco. No puff, no fluff, in-depth technical reviews of new firearms and ammo. In short, hard-hitting action articles of immediate interest to all real Americans, available from no other mainstream media. You need the other side of the story. That's why I'm offering a one-year subscription to Soldier of Fortune for only $22. That's over a 50% saving. Also, we're going to throw in a free 67-page bonus coverage of all our Waco material that's appeared in Soldier of Fortune and how it affects you. Call our 1-800 number now.
And that number is 1-800-877-5207. Again, 1-800-877-5207 for subscription information for Soldier Fortune magazine. A year subscription, $22 plus the great Waco supplement. Friends, a terrific bargain for a terrific magazine.
You know, I've been talking to that gobbler all morning, but I guess that's one turkey I just can't fool. Hi, I'm Grits Gresham, and believe me, turkey hunting is a real challenge. It takes patience, skill, and the right equipment. So see the folks who'll steer you right on the firearms and other hunting gear you'll need this season. Don't you be fooled. For your equipment needs, see the real pro in your community.
You know, Donna said earlier she didn't compromise on the ammunition in her guns, and neither should you. Corbon is the absolute best ammunition we have ever fired, ever found, ever dealt with on this program. Now, you can find out how to get information in your area or from Corbon Direct, whatever the situation may call for. Call them 1-800-626-7266. Again, 1-800-626-7266. Well, friends, it's happened again. We've run out of time for today's program. We want to thank everyone who is with us today, from Kurt, the judge, myself, Johnny Rowland. We look forward to seeing you on the next Shootin' Show. And please join our Shootin' Show Gun Club today.